Well, actually, my career started back in the early 60s, and I kind of look at it as kind of involving over the years. My career kind of or just grew along with the whole field of planned giving. But, back in the 1960s, there weren't very many institutions or organizations that were promoting planned giving, and in those days we called it deferred giving. And this was before the Tax Reform Act of '69, and I was very fortunate in the early days to have access to some early pioneering work that had been done out at Pomona College. And the president of Pomona, a guy named Lyons, had been a Rhodes Scholar with one of my senior partners, Frank Gray. And I asked Gray one day when I was first getting into doing a charitable remainder trust, I said, could your friend out at Pomona send me some stuff that they use out there for charitable trusts? And so Frank called his friend, and next week in the mail I got a big packet of stuff with all kinds of sample copies of trust agreements, etc. And this was before there was any definition in the code, Internal Revenue Code, of charitable remainder trusts or unit trusts or annuity trusts, etc. So the pre-'69 Tax Reform Act was really a kind of a pioneering age here in this country without much activity. But then the next era occurred in the 70s after the '69 Tax Reform Act was signed into law by President Nixon in the last week of the year. And in the '70s, we had an amazing situation where the unintended consequence rule came into effect. What Congress was really trying to do, in my opinion, was to kind of curtail the use of trusts, et cetera, where people retained income streams and then had charities get whatever was left over at the end. And so they passed that act, and it included Section 664, which for the first time defined a charitable remainder trust. And it created the definition of a unit trust and an annuity trust. And all of a sudden, here was a roadmap for the whole country to set up these trusts. And before that, people didn't know how to do it. And it took much of the '70s to develop that, but it was really the birth, in my opinion, of the whole field of planned giving, which really developed after that. And of course, 1976, the ALC Foundation decided to put on that first conference and invited the members of this luncheon group that had been started originally primarily by Phil Brain of the YMCA. And so we had a great turnout and decided to do this on an annual basis. And for the next several years, I think almost 10 years, it was sponsored year after year by the ALC Foundation. And then in the middle of the '80s, and this was kind of the third era that involved the planned giving here in Minneapolis, but the ALC decided to merge with the LCA, and they moved the headquarters from Minneapolis to Chicago and decided to stop sponsoring this annual conference. And at that point, the Minnesota Planned Giving Council had developed far enough along that somebody there, I'm not sure who, maybe it was Gary Hargroves, said, gee, this has been a good conference, we ought to keep it going. And so they picked right up, and without missing a beat, that conference kept on going. And here we are, 40 years from the first year. And it all developed out of that back in the '70s. Well, third era was in the '80s and '90s, and that was really the highlight of the planned giving era. We had a lot of capital gain assets that many potential donors had. And so using a charitable remainder trust or a charitable gift annuity was just a perfect way to convert those appreciated assets into an income stream, at the same time getting a charitable deduction, and at the same time providing for a remainder gift going to charity. So that was really the heyday. Starting in the 2000s, now we had the fourth era where we've had pretty much a level market since then without the great appreciation. And the result is there's been a slowing down of the use of CRTs and other plan giving methods. So those are the 4 eras. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and right at the start of it, and was very fortunate to get into the plan giving at an early stage.